That Saturday was one of those leisurely ones when everything seemed to move slowly. I was lounging at home scrolling through my phone when I noticed a missed call from Liam. He'd left his headphones at my apartment after we hung out the night before and needed them returned. It didn't seem like a big deal, so I grabbed the headphones from the table and texted him that I'd stop by. Liam didn't live far, just a quick trip across town, nothing complicated. I knew his mother, Charlotte, was usually home, but she typically kept to herself or stayed tucked away in her room. I hadn't given her much thought beyond noting she was quite attractive for her age, probably in her early 40s, though she didn't look it. To me, she was just Liam's mom, nothing more. When I knocked on the door, I expected Liam to answer, but it was Charlotte. She opened the door wearing only a towel, her hair still wet from the shower. She looked slightly surprised, but not embarrassed. I didn't know where to look, so my eyes darted away almost instantly. The air felt thick with an uneasy tension. "Hey, Russell," she said, smiling. "Liam's out for a bit. What brought you over?" I stumbled over my words for a second before holding up the headphones like a peace offering. "I just came to drop these off. I didn't know you'd be in the middle of something." She let out a soft laugh and brushed a wet strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh, I'm not busy," she said casually. "Just got out of the shower. Want to come in for a bit?" "What that?" I hesitated, but stepped inside. She wasn't a stranger, but it felt different now. I'd always seen her as a composed, motherly figure, never someone I'd feel drawn to. We sat in the living room and she offered me a drink. At first, the conversation was light and casual, but as we talked, she opened up in unexpected ways. She spoke about life, how things were changing, and how she sometimes felt utterly alone despite being surrounded by people. For a moment, I didn't feel like I was talking to my best friend's mom. It was just her and me sharing a genuine moment. The way she looked at me made me feel like she cared about what I had to say. "Team!" Something in me shifted. I started seeing her differently, not just as Liam's mom. Then she smiled soft and enigmatic and said, "Russell, you've grown up so much. It's hard to believe. I remember you and Liam running around the house as kids." I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. There was a new electricity between us, unspoken but undeniable. I could feel it, a spark, a quiet tension, but I wasn't sure what it meant. I wasn't ready to leave yet. She got up and walked to the kitchen, and I followed. As she passed, I caught the fresh, delicate scent of her shower. For a brief moment, she wasn't Liam's mom anymore. She was just a woman with her own story and desires. "Hmm. Thank you for stopping by," she said, turning to face me. "I really needed to talk to someone today." I gave a small smile, feeling a warmth in my chest. "Anytime," I said. Even as I left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Something unspoken had taken root, and I wasn't sure where it would lead. Gah! The next time I saw Charlotte was unplanned. I was picking up groceries for dinner when we ran into each other in an aisle. She was holding a jar of marinara sauce, scrutinizing the label with a slight frown. For some reason, that struck me. How had I not noticed how naturally beautiful she was? It wasn't just her looks, it was the way she moved, the quiet confidence she carried. She seemed to know something the rest of us didn't. I hadn't expected to see her, and I wasn't sure how to react. We hadn't spoken much since that strange morning with the towel and headphones, but something about that day lingered. "Lupo." She looked up and saw me. "Russell," she said, her smile calm and inviting. Her voice instantly put me at ease. I smiled back, trying to keep things casual. "Hey, Charlotte. Didn't expect to see you here." She motioned to her cart, just grabbing a few things for dinner. It was a simple exchange, but it turned into a full conversation. We talked about food, the weather, and other light topics, but beneath it all, there was a pulse of something deeper. Subtle glances, quiet smiles, a faint tension. Then out of nowhere she asked, "Are you doing anything tonight?" She said it casually, but I could tell she was testing the waters. Um, I shrugged. "Not much, just laying low at home." She smiled faintly. "Liam's out with his friends tonight. I was thinking of making dinner. You should come over. It'd be nice to have some company." The invitation caught me off guard. My first instinct was to politely decline. After all, what did we have to talk about besides Liam? But the way she said it made it hard to say no. Before I could think twice, I heard myself say, "Yeah, sure." "Okay." Later that evening, as I walked to her house, my chest tightened with anticipation. I felt a buzz I couldn't explain, like I was stepping into something unexpected. Her house felt warm and familiar, the smell of home-cooked food filling the air. Charlotte was in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred something on the stove. I stood in the doorway watching her for a moment. She didn't feel like the Charlotte I'd known. She looked the same, but something about her felt more real, more open. Got to. Go ahead and sit down, she said over her shoulder. Dinner's almost ready. I sat at the kitchen table trying not to seem nervous. She moved around the kitchen with ease as if she belonged there in every way. Meanwhile, I sat trying to make sense of the feelings stirring inside me. It wasn't just her appearance or how relaxed she seemed, it was how she made me feel like I was more than just her son's friend. We ate, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. There were no awkward silences or forced small talk. We talked about life, how things rarely turn out as planned. She shared stories from her younger years, how she missed the thrill of spontaneity. She admitted that with Liam often gone, her life had settled into a routine. Her voice carried a raw edge, like she'd been holding back for years, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Misikit. I listened. I didn't offer profound advice or deep insights. I just nodded and let her talk. As I sat quietly, I noticed things. Her eyes lit up. When she got passionate, her laugh was so genuine. She wasn't just Liam's mom anymore. She was a woman with her own thoughts, feelings, and life. Thank you, I said as we finished eating, and I started clearing the dishes. She smiled, and for a brief moment, I saw something deeper in her gaze. I'm so glad you came by, she said. It's been a while since I had a real conversation with anyone. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded, but I knew we were both feeling the same thing. There was a shift between us now, one we didn't need to voice. When I went to leave, she hugged me, simple, warm, and easy, but her hand lingered on my back a second too long, and that moment stayed with me. Take care, Russell, she said softly, almost in a whisper. My head was spinning as I walked to my car. That night had seemed so ordinary, yet it had loosened something inside me. I couldn't put it into words. She hadn't done anything overtly inappropriate, but the way she looked at me, the way she listened, it felt like a real connection, something different. I, I couldn't stop thinking about it in the days that followed. I tried to act like nothing had happened, but it was no use. A few days later, Liam asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I thought going out might clear my head, but when I walked into the bar, I saw Charlotte at the counter with some friends. She noticed me, smiled, and waved. Without thinking, I waved back. Her smile was warm, different from before, carrying an unspoken understanding that made my stomach twist slightly. Hey, Russell, she said as I approached. Didn't expect to see you tonight. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Just hanging out with Liam. Didn't know you'd be here. She laughed lightly. Yeah, catching up with some old friends. I haven't had a night out in a while. Her gaze lingered on mine a moment longer than necessary, and just like that, the tension was back, that subtle hum beneath the surface. I should have walked away, said goodnight, and joined Liam, but I didn't. Instead, I sat next to her. We talked, laughed, and pretended nothing was unusual. When Liam arrived, the three of us chatted about school, old memories, and silly things we used to do. But my mind kept drifting. Every time Charlotte looked my way, I felt it, that shift, that something. Her laughter, her glances stirred something in me I didn't fully understand. It was like we were holding a secret neither of us dared to voice. At one point, Liam went to get another drink, leaving just the two of us. I hadn't planned to say anything, but the words slipped out. So, Charlotte, how have you really been? She paused, her smile fading slightly, and for a moment I saw something raw in her eyes. I'm okay, she said quietly. I've been feeling a little lonely lately. Her honesty caught me off guard. It was like she'd peeled back a layer, revealing someone I hadn't expected, someone who wasn't just Liam's mom. Yeah, I said, nodding. I get that. It's not always easy. She gave a quiet nod, and we sat in silence for a moment. It wasn't awkward, it was calm, almost serene. I wanted to say more to comfort her, but the words wouldn't come. So I just looked at her, wondering if she meant it or if she was hinting at something deeper. Ushamno. Liam returned with our drinks, and the moment passed. But something in me had shifted. That night, Charlotte became more than a friend's parent. There was a new light around her, dangerous and compelling. Later, as we all left, I walked Liam to the car, but my thoughts were on that brief conversation with her. What did she mean by lonely? Was she just bored, or was she quietly asking for something more? When I got home, I collapsed onto the couch and replayed the night in my mind, the dinner, her confession, the look in her eyes. This wasn't just a random night out. There was something between us, something unspoken, and whether I wanted to or not, I was caught in it. The scariest part, I wasn't sure I wanted to resist anymore. Done. The next few days felt heavy. I couldn't stop thinking about the bar, how Charlotte opened up her quiet admission, the way her gaze lingered. There was a weight in the air I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried. I kept telling myself it meant nothing. Just a fleeting moment, but I knew better. Liam and I had always been close. He was my best friend. But lately, even when we hung out, my thoughts drifted back to her, to Charlotte. I hated that about myself, the thoughts that wouldn't leave. The way she smiled, the way she carried herself, she felt different now. That Saturday, I decided to clear my head. I called Liam and suggested we shoot some baskets at the park like old times. Maybe physical activity would quiet my mind. When I got to the court, Liam was already practicing his shot. He looked up and grinned. "About time." "You're late," he said, tossing me the ball. I forced a smile. Had to handle something. We played hard for the next hour, joking, talking trash, trying to one-up each other, but my mind wasn't in the game. I was somewhere else, somewhere warm, soft and confusing. We took a break, sitting on the court's edge, when Liam asked out of nowhere, "You think my mom's doing okay?" He wiped sweat from his brow and looked at me. The question threw me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "She's just been distant lately," he said, staring at the pavement. "Not herself. I don't know if she's stressed or what, but something feels off. I think she's going through something." That hit harder than I expected. I'd always seen Charlotte as composed, unshakable, but maybe I was wrong. "I don't know," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Have you talked to her about it?" He shook his head. "Not really. Every time I try, she brushes it off. I don't want to push, but I can tell she's not okay." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to confess, to tell him what I'd felt and seen the change in her and me. But I couldn't, not yet. Maybe not ever. Maybe she just needs some space, I offered, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he muttered, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. He wasn't convinced. We finished the game and headed back to his place, but my stomach stayed knotted the whole time, like I was walking towards something I couldn't stop. When we walked through the front door, there she was. Charlotte was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. She looked up and smiled as we entered, but I could see it, she held a trace of exhaustion, her posture a bit too stiff. She was playing a role. "Hey guys," she said warmly, but I could tell she was brushing something off. "Hey Mom," Liam said, sitting beside her. "You doing okay?" he asked, glancing at her. Charlotte hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just one of those long weeks." I could see she was dodging the question, acting like it was nothing. I didn't call her out on it, mostly because I didn't know how. My heart was pounding louder than I wanted to admit. I went to the kitchen for a glass of water, needing a moment to breathe to escape the weight in the room. But then I heard footsteps. Charlotte stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest. "Russell," she said quietly, her voice calm but direct. "Can we talk for a minute?" I turned, caught off guard. Yeah, sure, what's up?" She stepped inside and gently closed the door behind her. The space between us shrank and my chest tightened as she got closer. "I just wanted to thank you for the other night," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. It meant a lot to me. "Tam." I swallowed hard, her words hitting deeper than I expected. "Of course," I said. "You know I'm here if you need someone to talk to." She nodded slowly, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, buzzing with everything we weren't saying. Then, almost to shift the topic, she said, "Liam's a great kid. You know he's been through a lot, but he's got a good heart." I nodded, unsure where this was going. But her gaze lingered on me a second longer. That spark I'd felt before was back, humming like a taut wire. "Yeah," I said quietly. "He really does." "What I am?" She smiled, but there was something in it I couldn't quite read. I wondered if she was thinking the same thing I was. For a fleeting moment, I considered asking her what was happening between us, but I didn't. I just stood there, caught in the silence, wondering what came next. Finally, she broke the moment. "Thanks again, Russell," she said softly. Anytime I replied, but part of me knew I didn't mean it the same way anymore. Ma'am. A week passed since that night in the kitchen. The conversation wasn't dramatic, but it stuck with me. Every time I saw Charlotte after that, the air felt different, charged. I couldn't tell if she felt it too, or if I was projecting my own emotions. Either way, things had shifted, and I couldn't shake it. Liam and I hung out as usual, laughing, joking, keeping things light, but it didn't help. Whenever Charlotte entered the room, my eyes followed her. I noticed small things, how her head tilted when she spoke, how her gaze met mine just a fraction longer than needed. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but I felt it. Um, then came another Saturday. Liam had plans with friends, so I was at their place alone. I hadn't planned it, but I didn't mind. Truthfully, I needed the solitude to process what was swirling in my head and gut. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone when I heard her voice from the hallway. "Russell." I looked up, startled, to see Charlotte standing there, her expression unreadable. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, but my heart was already racing. She walked into the room, paused, then asked, "Can we talk?" My stomach clenched at the question. "Yeah, of course," I said, setting my phone aside. "Ushim." She sat next to me on the couch, close but not touching. The air felt heavier, the room smaller. "I've been thinking about our recent conversations." She began, her voice soft and cautious. "And I think I owe you an apology." I looked at her, caught off guard. This wasn't what I expected. "I know I've been a bit distant," she continued. "I've been dealing with some things, and I didn't want to unload on anyone." I blinked, trying to read her face. "It's okay," I said finally. "You don't have to apologize." She smiled warmly, but her eyes suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. There was more she wasn't saying. I appreciate that," she said, "but I think I might have crossed a line with you." My heart skipped a beat. This was the moment I'd been dreading, and if I'm honest, quietly hoping for. I didn't know where it would lead, but I couldn't stop myself from hearing her out. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice softer, more cautious. Charlotte took a deep breath and looked down at her hands, gently tugging at the edge of her shirt. "I think you know," she said quietly. "There's been something between us, and I can't keep pretending it doesn't exist." Ah? I froze. Her words hit me square in the chest, harder than I expected. I'd felt it, of course, but hearing her say it made it real, tangible, and confusing. "I'm not trying to make things awkward, Russell," she said, barely above a whisper. "I'm just not sure how to handle this, but I can't keep acting like nothing's happening." I looked at her, my mind racing in every direction. Everything in me screamed that this was wrong, that I shouldn't be here. Yet there I was. "I don't want it to be weird either," I said, trying to stay calm and keep things from unraveling. "But I don't know what you want me to say." She met my gaze, direct and steady. We sat in silence for what felt like forever, the stillness, heavy with all we couldn't say aloud. Then she reached out her hand, brushing mine, soft, barely there, but electric. It sent a jolt through me. My breath caught, and for a second I couldn't move. "This isn't just a crush, Russell," she whispered, her eyes locked on mine. "I don't know what this is, but I can't ignore it anymore. And I don't want to." A wave of emotions hit me: guilt, curiosity, desire, fear. I knew the risks, knew what could happen if anyone found out, but I also knew we had a connection. And part of me didn't want it to stop. "Oh, are you sure?" I asked, why my voice shaky. "I mean, whatever this is." She nodded, her fingers tightening around mine. "I'm sure." And with that, the line we'd been dancing around vanished. We didn't say anything else. There was nothing left to say. But the air had changed. We both felt it, the weight of what we'd just acknowledged. Everything was different after that. Basoyun. It's been a year since that night. We chose to keep it a secret, a year of balancing normal life with the quiet moments we carved out for ourselves. In some ways, it feels like we've lived a lifetime in those stolen moments. We didn't talk much about us. What started that night, she answered the door in a towel, never faded. It just became part of our lives. It felt strangely natural, but also fragile, something we guarded closely. From the start, we agreed on one thing: our happiness mattered. That happiness came from trust, a trust that let us share everything while keeping it hidden from the world. Wissam. We built our own little space, a miniature version of something real. But the guilt never fully left me. Every time I saw Liam, something tugged at the back of my mind, not because I thought he needed to know, but because carrying a secret like this leaves a mark. Still, I never regretted my choice. We both made it, and no matter how messy or hard it got, it always felt right. Charlotte and I saw each other when we could, not too often, never pushing the boundaries. We kept it discreet, quiet, out of sight. The hardest part was pretending Liam would come over, smiling, oblivious, and we'd keep our hands to ourselves, acting like we were just friends. But those small moments, the quick glances, subtle smiles, fleeting touches when no one was looking, those were everything. They held us together. Well, when we were alone at her house, we'd talk about what might happen if the truth came out. We never had a clear plan, just vague possibilities and half-formed ideas. But we didn't dwell on it long. We stayed in the present, in the quiet in-between spaces where we didn't have to explain ourselves, where we could just be. One calm Saturday evening, about a year after it all began, I was back at Charlotte's house sitting on the same couch where it started. The house was quiet, Liam was out with friends, so we had the place to ourselves. Everything felt normal now, comfortable in a way that once seemed impossible. We'd learned to live like this, quiet, careful, connected. Bah. We didn't need to talk about our feelings constantly anymore. The relationship had settled into something stable, something real. It was always unconventional, but it became something I couldn't imagine giving up. Charlotte sat beside me, as beautiful as ever, but with a softness, now an ease in her posture, a calm in her face. It had taken time, but we'd learned to carry the weight of what we had. We'd grown into the secret, and I'd found peace in it. I'd learned to make it feel like home. Do you ever think about how we got here? She asked quietly, her voice warm and low, breaking the silence. I smiled and leaned back into the cushions. All the time, I said, honestly, I still can't believe we've made it this long. I looked at her, my old disbelief turning into something like gratitude. It doesn't feel like a year, she said with a soft laugh, resting her head on my shoulder. But at the same time, it feels like this has always been our home, like this was meant to happen. I nodded slowly, brushing my hand against hers. Yeah, it's weird, I said. But it's the good kind of weird. I never thought my life would be like this, but now that I'm here, I wouldn't change a thing. She tilted her head, meeting my gaze with that look that always seemed to stop the world. Me neither, she said softly. Given the circumstances, I think we've done pretty well. I'm glad we kept it to ourselves. Her voice was steady, certain. It's ours, just ours. And she was right. That was what mattered most. It wasn't about anyone else. This was something we built quietly, carefully together. I'm happy, I said softly, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. We're happy. That's what counts. Wetu. We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. We just sat there side by side, wrapped in a silence that didn't need filling. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. A year had passed, a year of hiding in plain sight. Somehow we'd made it work. We'd kept the secret, protected what we had. And through it all, we'd held on to what mattered most, each other. As the evening wore on and the sky outside darkened, one thought stood out in my mind. This was how I wanted it to stay. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, strange, and hard, but it was ours. One of the most profound lessons from this story is the complexity of human connections and the importance of empathy in navigating some. Life often places us in unexpected situations where emotions blur the lines between right and wrong, challenging us to listen to our hearts while respecting the boundaries of those around us. Charlotte and Russell's story teaches us that everyone carries their own struggles. Loneliness, unspoken desires, or the weight of routine, and a moment of genuine understanding can spark something transformative. It reminds us to approach others with compassion, to see beyond their roles or labels, and to recognize the shared humanity that binds us. Yet it also cautions us to tread carefully as our choices ripple through the lives of others like Liam, who remains unaware of the secret. This delicate balance between following our truth and honoring our responsibilities is a lifelong lesson, one that requires courage, self-awareness, and grace. This story stirs emotions because it's raw, and real life isn't always neat or predictable. But it's in these messy moments that we grow. So what do you think? Have you ever faced a moment where your heart pulled you in one direction, but your mind urged caution? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories and insights. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join our community for more heartfelt stories that dive deep into the human experience. Let's keep the conversation going and explore life's lessons together.